The holy land of the Kirin was at stake. As the holy son of the Qilin, you fought for 7 days and 7 nights to kill 1,000,000 troops, and then killed 20 Mahayana cultivators with a severely injured body. And your cultivation dropped from the Mahayana stage to the foundation stage overnight. You originally thought that you would become a hero that everyone in the Holy Land would admire. But you didn't expect that when you learned that your cultivation couldn't be restored, Master Lu Yunyan immediately stripped you of your sacred son position. And your senior sisters forcibly took away your magic treasures. In order to get the position of the Holy Son, your junior brother began to slander and frame you, and finally tortured you alive to death. Fortunately, you were reborn on the day you were framed by your junior brother. Southern State, Qilin Holy Land, Yun Prowler. After raising you for over 10 years, did Master raise such a chicken-stealing thing like you? You have truly disappointed me. Lu Yunyan angrily looked at the white-robed man in the center of the hall. Adverse disciple, I'm asking you, did you or did you not steal the pills that broke through the golden dan of junior brother? Senior, don't blame eldest senior brother. He is also doing this in order to restore his cultivation. I can understand. Junior senior brother Bai Chen advised softly from the side. Although his mouth was pleading for Yunyan Yuan, the tears in his eyes showed everything. Ling Yanran, the fifth senior sister on the side, called out, "You're still too gentle. Junior brother, how does this kind of person deserve sympathy? It should just be killed straight away. At the loss of me calling you elder brother, you actually stole even junior brother's things. You didn't say anything. The most important thing now is to leave the Kirin Holy Land to get rid of the group of people in front of you. You feel a pang of nausea when you see these people now." A line of clear tears flowed from junior brother Bai Chen's eyes. Senior, although eldest senior brother stole my pills, my spirit stones and weapons, and even peeked at third senior sister's bath, the crime is not to death, so please spare eldest senior brother. As soon as Bai Chen's words came out, everyone in the hall looked towards Yun Prosperity in unison. Ling Roland screamed as her harmonized God stage cultivation violently erupted out and pressed towards Yun Prosperity, who was at the Foundation Establishment cultivation. You are only at the Foundation Establishment cultivation now. How could you possibly block this pressure? In just a split second, the bones in your body instantly exploded. Seeing this, Lu Yunyan angrily shouted, "Enough!" Lu Yunyan frowned and asked in a deep voice, "Rebellious disciple, the master asks you, did you peep at your senior sister's bath or not?" "I am a Foundation Establishment cultivator who went to peep at a spirit transformation cultivator washing his." You sneer and laugh. These people don't even understand the simplest reasoning. They will only listen to Bai Chen's side of the story to blame themselves. The crowd was dumbfounded by these words. Yes, the divine sense of a harmonized spirit cultivator is powerful. The situation in 100 miles around is clear. Not to mention Yuniwu, who was peeping at the bath outside the door. With Ling Roland's temper, if it was an ordinary person peeking at her bath, he would have been slapped to death long ago. Ling Roland looked stunned and unforgiving. Maybe I didn't even notice it at the time. Who knows if you used some magic treasure to hide your breath? At that you laughed out loud. Is there any magic treasure of mine that you haven't taken? You then pointed at Ling Yanran. And you, Ling Yanran, were making love to your little senior brother. Ling Yanyan instantly frowned. You as the eldest senior brother. What's wrong with me using a bit of your pills and spirit stones? What's wrong with taking you a little treasure? You don't need it anyway. How petty. Ling Yanyan's light tone caused the surrounding several elders to frown. Your bull, you go refine pills yourself to earn spirit stones. Using someone else's is still so justified. Facing the contemptuous gazes of several elders, Ling Yanran's face flushed red for a while as she roared. Yun Daoyao didn't say anything himself. So who are you guys to talk about me? It's not like it's yours to use. Lu Yunyan glared at Ling Yanran. Ling Yanran, pay attention to your words. It was then that Ling Yanyan reacted. These several elders around her were the ones with the highest status in the Qilin sacred ground besides Lu Yunyan. It was simply not for her, a junior, to preach. Seeing that the faces of the several elders were getting darker and darker, Ling Yanran then reluctantly apologized. Bai Chen, who was on the side, looked towards Lu Yunyan and Ling Roland. His voice carried a plea. Senior master sister, senior brother, he has not made any progress in his cultivation over the years. He probably has a problem with his state of mind. Let's just spare senior brother this time. I'm sure that he is not this kind of a person. You laughed coldly. If you had not been reborn, I am afraid that you really thought that Bai Chen was sincerely pleading for you. A softness appeared in Lu Yunyan's eyes at these words. Still, Chener understands things. I really didn't look at the wrong person. Ling Roland also chimed in. That's right. Senior brother, you're just too kind. People like him don't deserve us to call him senior brother. Then under by Chen's persuasion, Lu Yunyan also made a decision. Alright, since Chener has said so, then this time it's over. But if there is a next time, this father will never show mercy. After saying this, Lu Yunyan's figure flickered and disappeared in place. Ling Yanran and Ling Ruolan, who were already beside her, pulled Bai Chen away. Go, Jun, your brother, sister and I have made a lot of delicious food today. You'll be blessed with a mouthful today. Bai Chen had a simple look on his face. Okay, senior sister. The three of them then left the main hall in large strides. Looking at the backs of several people leaving, you dragged your injured body slowly towards the bottom of the mountain. For hundreds or thousands of years, you had long since cultivated your mind to the point of near perfection. Even though everyone didn't believe you and humiliated and mocked you, you didn't care, because you knew that it wouldn't be long before all these people who humiliated you would die. Upon returning to the cave, Yun Yenyuan first opened the secret compartment on the wall of the cave and took out the pills in it. After taking the elixir, the crushed and broken bones in his body were directly recovering at an extremely fast speed. This was an elixir that he had saved up his spirit stones for a long time before purchasing it. Just to deal with this kind of situation, there were very few things in the cave, except for a table and bed that were as simple as it could be. Even the spiritual qi in the air was extremely thin, not even as good as an outer disciple's cave. If the outside world knew about it, who would dare to believe that the once holy son of the Qilin actually lived in such a shabby place? However, it seemed that Yun Yunchang had already gotten used to all of this, and after putting away some of his clothes, he left the cave. After leaving the cave, Yun Yenyuan headed directly towards the law enforcement hall. Normally, disciples other than outer disciples who wanted to withdraw from the sect would have to go to the deacon's hall to complete the formalities. Although he was tempted to just leave, he chose to go and get the withdrawal formalities out of the clan. Soon after, he came to the law enforcement hall and told him about the withdrawal from the clan. Upon hearing this, the law enforcement elder's brows furrowed slightly. Then wait a moment, I'll report this matter to the Holy Lord. After saying that, he took out a sound transmission jade talisman and began to report. Chapter 3: Expulsion from the Holy Land. At this moment, Lu Yunyan, who was in the throes of anger, suddenly felt the vibration of the sound transmission jade tablet. After hearing elder law enforcement say that Yun Yunshan was going to withdraw from the clan, Lu Yunyan could no longer hold back her angry roar. I only said a few words about him, and he actually dared to threaten me by withdrawing from the clan, didn't he? In the face of the Holy Lord's anger, the law enforcement elder sweated coldly, not daring to say a single word more. Lu Yunyan suppressed the anger in her heart and droned in a deep voice. Yun Prowler, if you go back to cultivate with me now, this time I'll take it as you being young and impulsive and unintelligent and won't blame you. Upon hearing this, the law enforcement elder breathed a sigh of relief. However, Yuniwei's words caused his body to stiffen. Thank you for reminding me, Holy Lord, but my disciple has been too tired from cultivating all these years and wants to go to the outside world to see what's out there. So I hope that the Holy Lord will fulfill my wish. The moment these words came out, there was silence on the side of the voice transmission jade talisman. The next moment, Lu Yunyan's violent roar came from inside. Yun Prosperity, you've threatened this seat again and again. Do you really think that the Qilin Holy Land can't do without you? Give him the procedures to withdraw from the clan. I want to see what use he has left the Qilin Holy Land. After saying that, the sound transmission jade talisman instantly exploded and turned into fragments in the sky. It was evident that Lu Yunyan was already furious to the extreme at this moment, unable to do anything about it. The law enforcement elder sighed and stamped his seal on Yun Yuan's application to withdraw from the clan. The moment he stepped out of the mountain gate, he only felt energized and had an indescribable comfort. It was as if what had been squeezed in the heart for so long had smoothed out all at once. In the next moment, a blinding golden light exploded out from within Yun Yuan's body. As the aura in his body continued to converge towards the Dantian, a golden Dan that emitted a bright light slowly condensed. Jin Dan Realm. As the golden Dan in his body took shape, Yun Yuan slowly opened his eyes. This feeling of a breakthrough was so long overdue. Yun exhaled a breath. At this moment, he only felt an incomparable relief all over his body. Indescribably comfortable. It was as if a pimple that had been blocked in my heart for many years had been opened. Sure enough, my choice to leave the Qilin Holy Land was not wrong. Afterwards, Yuniwei took stock of the supplies on his body. There are still around 3,000 spirit stones and a dozen or so spirit gathering pills, which should be enough for me to cultivate for a while. Soon, he arrived in a hidden cave 100 miles away from the Qilin Holy Land. This cave was one of the places he used to spend a lot of time when he was out and about, and over time, He had come to think of it as a second home. Therefore, he had also purposely set up a hidden formation outside the cave, which ordinary people would not be able to discover. He took some of the spirit stones out and placed them in specific places on the ground. In an instant, a majestic aura converged with him at the center. This was clearly a small spirit gathering formation. It was important to know that Ling Roland's ability to become a formation master was inseparable from Qing Yun. At that time, not only was his cultivation talent one of the best, even his alchemy and formation techniques were astonishing. Therefore, setting up a spirit gathering formation that couldn't be simpler was a breeze for him. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed in a flash. After 3 days of cultivation, the only 3,000 spirit stones left had been consumed, and the rewards gained were also very satisfying to Yun Yunchang. At this moment, his cultivation had come to the 3rd level of the Jindan stage. Looking at the spirit stones on the ground that had turned into flying ash, Yun Yuan let out a bitter smile. The priority now is still to find a clan to join. Otherwise, at this rate of consumption, the holy mountain of Kirin. Lu Yunyan sat cross-legged in her room and was cultivating with her eyes closed. But suddenly, she felt a flurry of panic in her heart, and her originally calm-as-water state of mind nearly ruptured. Her eyes snapped open and she gasped for air. What's going on here? Why do I suddenly feel as if I've lost something important? What's going on here? She had been stuck in this realm ever since she broke through the Mahayana stage. And just now, she was so close to breaking through to the middle stage of Mahayana. But the sudden panic caused her breakthrough to end in failure this time. She felt that her cultivation level had fallen a lot. For a while, Lu Yunyan's heart was incomparably irritated. Suddenly, she thought of someone. She was about to take out her voice transmission jade talisman and ask about it, but she realized that the talisman had been crushed by her 3 days ago. For a moment, that irritation in her heart intensified. He's only at the foundation establishment cultivation level. He wouldn't dare to leave if you gave him 100 guts. He must be just trying to threaten me with this. That must be it. In the next moment, her figure disappeared in place. And at this moment, the law enforcement elder who was leisurely drinking tea in the law enforcement hall suddenly jumped up. It was only because in front of him was standing a woman with a tall figure and a stunningly beautiful appearance. Puff! The law enforcement elder directly knelt down. Unable to raise his head by the pressure belonging to the Mahayana stage, Lu Yunyan looked at the law enforcement elder and asked in a cold voice, "Has Yun Yunchang returned?" Upon hearing this, the law enforcement elders who didn't know what was going on shook their heads in succession. Returning to the words of the Holy Lord, after Yun Prowler went through the formalities of withdrawing from the clan that day, he never came back. And, this is what you, Holy Lord, want. At this moment, Lu Yunyan was completely dumbfounded. She was only speaking in anger that day, and didn't really want Yun Yunchang to leave. Moreover, she felt that with Yun Yunchang's current cultivation, he wouldn't leave the Qilin Holy Land no matter what. However, Yun Yuan had truly left without the slightest intention of returning. Suddenly, Lu Yunyan raised her head, her eyes filled with a hideous color. Yun Prowler, I have raised you and nurtured you for more than a decade, and you actually did this kind of betrayal against me. Since this is the case, don't blame me. She looked at the law enforcement elder and said word for word, pass the order down. From today onwards, whoever dares to take in Yun Prowler will be prepared to meet the wrath of my Qilin sacred land. At that time, I, Lu Yunyan, will definitely pay a visit. Hearing this, the law enforcement elder could only nod tremblingly. Soon, the Qilin order was spread out at an extremely fast speed. Cloud Easy, an inner disciple of the Qilin Holy Land, refused to admit to stealing the resources and treasures of his junior disciple in the sect, contradicting his elders, and disregarding his elders. Upon consideration, Cloud Prosperity will be expelled from the Qilin Holy Land with immediate effect, and will not be allowed to return for the rest of his life. In addition, if there is any power that takes in admitting Cloud Prosperity, I, Lu Yunyan, will definitely pay a visit. For a while, the forces that heard this news were all shocked. What shocked them wasn't that Yun Yuan had stolen treasures and was disrespectful. They were shocked that the Qilin Holy Land had actually expelled Yun Prowler from the Holy Land, and they were not allowed to go back for the rest of their lives. What kind of person is Cloud Easy? When he fought against the entire southern state with his own strength, and repelled more than 30 Mahayana powerhouses and millions of armies by himself. Entry 1 year to refine Qi, 2 years to build the foundation, but also in 3 years to become the youngest Jindan cultivator in history. At that time, with a peak Mahayana cultivation, he killed more than 20 cultivators of the same realm, creating an invincible posture. Back then, the pride of the 10,000 races had risen to prominence, But in the face of cloud prosperity, which one dared to say that they were undefeated? Which one dared to say that they were invincible? And it was such a supreme demon that was now reduced to the point of being unloaded. At this moment, no one cared about what mistake Yun Yunchang had made. All there was regret and abuse towards the Qilin Holy Land. If it wasn't for Yun Prowler stepping forward in the first place, the Qilin Holy Land would have long since turned into a mass grave, a white-eyed wolf clan. Originally I was aiming to enter the Holy Land of the Qilin as a goal in life, but now it seems, it's disgusting. A genius like Yun Yunchang that we don't even have if we want it. They actually kicked it out. This Lu Yunyan is a little cutie. Countless people sighed for Yun Yunchang, feeling unworthy for Yun Yunchang, the Holy Land that he had fought so hard to protect. In the end, he actually drove himself out and sealed it off. If they were in their place, they would have broken their Taoist hearts long ago. While the people in the southern state were discussing endlessly, the 4 Holy Lands that had gotten the news were blowing up. Chapter 4, What's going on? Green Cloud Holy Land. What? You're telling the truth. That stupid woman, Lu Yunyan, really drove Yun Yunchang out of the Holy Land? Sacred Lord, this is the Qilin Order. It's clearly written on it. It's absolutely not a lie. Qing Yun Holy Lord Jiang Muyun looked at the Qilin Order in his hand and casually injected an aura into it. Soon, Lu Yunyan's voice resounded in the Great Hall. When they heard the complete expulsion of Yun Prowler, the crowd of the Qing Yun Holy Land all stared in disbelief. Jiang Muyun's fingers trembled slightly. Then he laughed out loud. Lu Yunyan, Lu Yunyan, you've really lived too freely all these years, forgetting everything that Yun Prosperity did in the beginning. If it weren't for Yun Prowler, your Kirin Holy Land wouldn't even rank as a first-class power. What he said was true. At that time, when Yun Yun's cultivation reached the peak of the Mahayana stage, Lu Yunyan had only just stepped into the Mahayana stage. And if one were to look at her cultivation at the early stage of the Mahayana period, the Qilin Sacred Land really couldn't be ranked as a first-rate power. They had also taken out countless treasures and sent people forward to solicit them when Yun Prowler was displaying his talent. However, Yun Yunchang had a firm attitude and rejected them. The surrounding elders also chimed in and laughed. That's right, still ready to meet the wrath of their Qilin Holy Land. Without Yun Yunchang, she, Lu Yunyan, is nothing, especially that doorstep visit. It's killing me. She really thinks she's invincible? At that moment, an elder suddenly stood up. Sacred Lord, it's likely that the other Holy Lands have received the news as well. If we don't make a move, I'm afraid our chances are slim. At those words, everyone then reacted. Yun Yunchang was such a demonic person. There were definitely not a few forces that wanted to recruit him. Jiang Muyun slapped his brain and hurriedly shouted, pass on the Qing Yun order. If Yun Prowler is willing to join the Qing Yun sacred ground, then the position of Qing Yun's sacred son must be his. In addition, this honored one can give him the Green Cloud Sword, as long as he's willing to come. Green Cloud Sword. All the elders were shocked. The Green Cloud Sword was the most precious treasure of the Green Cloud sacred ground, and its grade had even reached a half-step imperial weapon. Instead, Jiang Muyun was going to give it to Yun Yunchang, but they were only shocked for a moment, but didn't find anything inappropriate. Because, Cloud Easy, he's worth it. As for the fact that it would offend the Kirin Holy Land, in all honesty, without Yun Yunchang, the Qilin Holy Land was not even a fart in their eyes. On the other hand, after Yun Yunchang walked out of the cave, he headed directly towards the east, arriving at the northern city, which was 100 miles away from the Qilin Holy Land, and he came here because he wanted to inquire if there were any forces recruiting disciples. Coincidentally, he happened to catch the day when the 5 holy places were recruiting disciples. Excluding the Qilin Holy Land, the remaining 4 Holy Lands were all recruiting disciples, and with the lowest threshold, as long as one is at the foundation establishment cultivation level, one can become an outer disciple, and since Yun Yunchang was now at Jindan cultivation, the least he could do was enter a holy place to cultivate. Thus, he immediately rushed towards the nearest Qing Yun Holy Land, the Qing Yun Holy Land, the second highest ranking existence amongst the 5 Holy Lands, with the Qilin Holy Land coming in at number 1. As the second largest force, the threshold is also extremely high, the minimum requirement, but also if the Jindan realm cultivation. In the 3 days since Yun Yunchang broke away from the Qilin Holy Land, some strange phenomena occurred in every part of the Qilin Holy Land. Ling Yanran, who was originally refining pills for junior brother Bai Chen, suddenly experienced a rare blow-up of the furnace. In this scene, not only her, but even the disciples passing by outside did not dare to believe it. As an alchemy patriarch, Ling Yanran would actually blow up the furnace. Ling Yanran stared at the herbs that had turned into a pile of waste in front of her, her eyes widening. How could it be? What I refined was just a furnace of the most ordinary Qi enhancement pill. How could it blow up? This elixir called Qi enhancement pill was a third-grade elixir that was usually used to increase the cultivation used by Foundation establishment cultivators. And as a fifth-grade alchemist, she usually refined hundreds of these pills at once and never failed. And this time, she was blowing up the furnace. If this was placed in the outside world, not to mention that no one would believe it, even if it happened in front of them, they would think that Ling Yanran did it on purpose. Ling Yanran tried to adjust her own emotions, silently telling herself that it was nothing more than an accident just now. Afterwards, she once again took out dozens of medicinal herbs and skillfully refined them. But soon enough, the results slapped her in the face once again. Bang! With a bang, a black smoke and the pasty stench of herbs flew out of her room. Ling Yanran touched the black ash on her face and was completely dumbfounded. What the hell is going on here? And her sister, Ling Ruolin, wasn't much better, being in a similar situation to her. Ling Ruolin looked at the scrapped formation in front of her and fell into a moment of self-doubting stupor. However, what everyone doesn't know is this. Underneath the ground of the Qilin sacred land, the Qiluk golden dragon shadow, which was originally flickering with golden light, had already dimmed at this time. The Qiluk golden dragon wailed and looked in one direction with a bleak gaze. And that direction was exactly the direction that Yun Prowler had left. If someone with a heart of gold passed by the Qilin Holy Land, they would realize that the Holy Land, which was originally shrouded in blessed light, had lost its former luster at this time. At this moment, Qing Yun Holy Land, Outer Gate Square. The crowded square was filled with disciples coming and going who had come to participate in the entrance examination, and without exception, all of their cultivation levels were Jindan. Yuniwei looked at the crowded square and sighed a little. Worthy of being the second largest power in the southern state, there are simply too many people here. He then followed the crowd to receive his number plate and waited in line. Looking at the long queue, Yuniwei couldn't help but think of the Qilin Holy Land. Ever since the Qilin Holy Land became the number one power, the entire sect, up and down, was also completely inflated. The annual recruitment of disciples that used to take place once a year was never held again. He had also persuaded Lu Yunyan, but Lu Yunyan not only didn't take it seriously, but also felt that he was worrying about nothing. Even his two most beloved little sisters ridiculed and mocked him. Every time he thought about it, a pang of amusement went through him. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was asking for it. Without waiting for much thought, it was already his turn to test. The disciple in charge of the quiz didn't lift his head and lazily asked, "What's your name and what's your cultivation level today?" Yun Prowler, Jindan Triple. Well, Cloud. This disciple in charge of the test was originally lazy, but when he heard this name, he froze. Not only him, but even the people in line behind him froze. "You said your name is Yun Prosperity?" Upon hearing this, Yuniwei nodded his head. Seeing him nod, the crowd around him exploded. However, they soon calmed down as they realized that Yun Prowler's cultivation was nothing more than a Jindan stage. And the Yun Yunchang they were talking about was the Yun Yunchang who had fought 30 Mahayana stages alone. A hush fell over the crowd. Scared me. I thought it was really that Cloud Prosperity from the Qilin Holy Land. It seems that this person's parents wanted him to be just like Yun Prowler before they took this name, which is understandable. The crowd murmured, but none of them believed that he was Yun Yunchang. In response, Yun Yunchang did not say anything more and looked towards the disciple in charge of the test. "Can we start the test?" However, the testing disciple shook his head. "The disciples we recruit all have to reach Foundation establishment at the minimum age of 16, and although I can't tell how old your bones are, they are certainly far beyond the minimum requirement. Although you are a Jindan cultivator, you really don't meet our recruitment conditions." So, upon hearing this, Yun Yunchang understood the meaning of the words and merely nodded before turning to leave. He wasn't very surprised that he couldn't join the Green Cloud Holy Land. After all, he had come with a triancy attitude at the beginning. Thinking about when the Qilin Holy Land recruited disciples, it was even more anticlimactic. Not only do you have to reach the Jindan stage, but you can't be older than 16. After leaving the confines of the Qing Yun Holy Land, Yun Prowler pondered a little before heading in another direction, but not much farther out. A surprised voice came over. "Brother Easy, is that you?" Chapter 5 Yifan's Invitation. Hearing the sound, Yuniwei turned to look. He only saw a man wearing a green robe with a straight figure looking at him with a surprised face. Yun Yuan was slightly stunned at the sight of the man. "Brother Yifan, why are you here?" This person's name was Yifan, a sword son of the southern state's top power. The sword sect, and one of the few close friends of Yun Prosperity back then. The Sword Son could be said to be the Sword Sect Saint's son, the same thing as the Kirin Saint's son. The two used to be the two most controversial geniuses, so naturally there was no shortage of sparring. And while Yi Fan hadn't won a single time in the hundreds of sparring sessions, the two had become good friends as a result. Yi Fan smiled faintly. I passed by here earlier and suddenly felt a familiar aura, so I came down to take a look, and I didn't think it was actually you. Easy. Say, shouldn't you be in the Qilin Holy Land? Why are you in the Qing Yun Holy Land? Upon hearing this, Yun Prowler didn't hide anything and truthfully told what had happened and told Yi Fan about the fall in his cultivation. After hearing what happened to his best friend, Yi Fan was also incomparably angry. As for Yun Prowler's fall in cultivation, he was unconcerned. He believed that with Yun Prosperity's talent, it would only be a matter of time before he regained his cultivation. They're really blind. If it wasn't for you, Easy, stepping in to repel the million-strong army in the first place, where would they have gotten their good days? Even if you're not thankful, you're actually kicking you out. Yun Yenyuan smiled faintly and didn't say anything. For the Qilin Holy Land, he had long had plans. Yi Fan pondered for a moment and suddenly asked, so, Easy, are you joining the Qing Yun Holy Land now? Upon hearing this, Yun Yenyuan was a bit teary-eyed. Didn't really join. People thought I was too old. When these words came out, Yi Fan froze, then laughed out loud. A bunch of fools. What a bunch of fools. Such geniuses don't know how to cherish them. Easy, I'm now officially inviting you to join the Sword Sect. If you can come, I'm willing to give you the position of Sword Son. I'm sure you're well aware of what we sword cultivators are like. I'm sure you know very well. Not only will we not be the same as the Qilin Holy Land, but we'll also cultivate you with all our might. This was a point that Yun Prosperity also agreed with. He couldn't be more clear about the sword cultivator's person. So naturally, he had no doubts. And what moved him was that even with his current regression in cultivation and no background, Yi Fan was willing to help him. He was willing to give up the position of Sword Son to him. And what reason did he have to reject Yi Fan? Okay, I promise you, join the Sword Sect. Hearing that Yuniwu promised, Yi Fan was incomparably excited. Good, then let's go back now. If the Sword Master knows about this news, he will definitely be happier than me. Afterward, Yi Fan couldn't wait to take Yun Prowler to leave with his sword. And in less than half an hour after the two of them had left, the outer gate square of the Green Cloud Holy Land had exploded. They looked at the Qilin order above their heads, listened to Lu Yunyan's angry voice inside, and fell into deep thought. Effective immediately, Yun Prosperity will be expelled from the Qilin Holy Land and will not be allowed to enter again in this life. Silence, dead silence. The one who was the most silent was undoubtedly the test disciple who had previously rejected Yun Prosperity, and everyone's gazes were directed towards him in unison. Just now, I remember if there was a person named Yun Chang who came to participate in the test, but was rejected by him to come? It seems so, and that person's face is practically identical to the one depicted on the unicorn order. Remove the seeming. That person is Yun Prowler, the Yun Prowler of the Holy Land of the Qilin. The Yun Prowler who fought alone against an army of millions. Wait, doesn't this mean that the Qing Yun Holy Land just rejected Yun Prosperity's application to join the sect? Now, the crowd reacted and looked at the disciple with odd eyes. At that moment, an incomparably strong aura suddenly arrived above the heads of the crowd. The visitor wore a green-colored Daoist robe with a green cloud embroidered on it, representing that he was an elder of the Green Cloud Holy Land. He looked at the coaxing crowd below and came to the test disciple, frowning as he asked, "What's going on here? Why do I hear Yun Prowler's name? Could it be that he's been here?" At those words, this disciple's body trembled violently and he stammered, not daring to speak, and the people watching the show around them didn't mind, and directly told the story of how Yun Prosperity had just been rejected for coming to take the test. Instantly, this Green Cloud Holy Land elder was dumbfounded. He had just finished attending the meeting and was about to go spread the news when he realized that people had already come and were rejected by the disciples under his door. For a moment, this elder's heart wanted to die. With an angry roar, he directly slapped this disciple in the face, sending him flying hundreds of meters. "Do you know what you've done? You've given a supreme demon to another sect. Damn it, when the time comes, you'll have to bear the wrath of the Holy Lord yourself." Afterwards, this elder then urged his body's aura with all his might and rushed towards the bottom of the mountain, the holy mountain of Kirin. Lu Yunyan above the main seat listened to the complaints of the three disciples in front of her, and her already irritable mood became even worse. "Senior, think of a solution. The elixir the junior brother is going to break through the golden Dan. I've been refining it for 3 days now, and it blows up the furnace every time it comes to a critical moment. That's right, the formations I refined are the same. Every time I get to a critical moment, something goes wrong, and I simply don't know what the reason is. After listening to what the two said, Lu Yunyan frowned. What? Are you guys making mistakes at every critical moment too? Yes, the two nodded in unison. At that moment, Lu Yunyan's frown deepened. She then looked at Bai Chen. Tatsuya, have you had anything similar happen to you lately? Upon hearing this, Bai Chen, who had an honest and well-behaved appearance, shook his head, but in his heart, he laughed coldly in succession. This stupid woman doesn't even know until now that the Qilin sacred land's chi has disappeared all because of Yun Prowler alone. But it's good that she doesn't know. At this rate, the Qilin Holy Land won't be able to support it for much longer, and then it will be my heavenly demon sects. At that moment, an elder walked in. Sacred Lord, today is the day that pills are distributed once a month. Lu Yunyan frowned slightly. What's wrong? This little thing, you guys can't just do it yourselves. You still need to come and ask me? But, this elder stammered, his face slightly embarrassed. It's not proper to stammer. Just say what you have to say. Lu Yunyan lightly shouted, her eyes filled with impatience. Yes. This elder took a deep breath and spoke quickly, reporting back to the Holy Lord. The pills left in the Dan room are no longer enough for this distribution. It's unusual for S.A. Cloud Prosperity to come and refine pills, but he hasn't come this month. So, Lu Yunyan shouted angrily, can't you guys make your own without Yun Chang? Does it mean that all of you at Alchemy Peak don't know how to make pills? She then looked at Ling Yanran. Yan, go to the Alchemy Peak and see what's going on. And by the way, go help refine pills and distribute this month's supply as soon as possible. Master Teacher. Ling Yanran wanted to say that she had to refine pills for Bai Chen and wasn't available, but seeing Lu Yunyan's angry face, she still didn't say anything and honestly followed this elder away. When the two left, Lu Yunyan sat on the chair, her chest rising and falling. Seeing this, Bai Chen, who was on the side, had a twinkle in his eye and rushed forward to comfort him. Master, you mustn't get angry and break your body. Eldest brother, he should be going out for a walk. It won't be long before he comes back. At those words, Lu Yunyan took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in her heart. If only he could be as understanding as you. Chen I've really raised a white-eyed wolf. I just said a few words about him, and he was still unconvinced. He actually withdrew directly from the Holy Land. If he comes back within 3 days, I might still be able to forgive him. Listening to Lu Yunyan's self-talk, Bai Chen laughed in his heart. Yun Iching, you mustn't come back. You must quit the Holy Land with an iron heart. It's the only way I can fulfill my plan. Chapter 6, I will give up the